Business means welcome to the studio, Kate Moody, our business editor. Always great to see you, Kate. Thank you for joining us. The EU is trying to contain the fallout of high energy prices linked to, of course, the Iran war.
Yeah, for the second time in 5 years, Mark, even though the EU isn't quite as exposed to the energy crisis now as it was when Russia invaded Ukraine, it has learned lessons from that supply shock, and it's now moving to shield households and businesses. The European Commission highlighted its efforts to optimize the distribution of jet fuel. That's a potentially looming crisis that has led European airlines to cut back their schedules. Lufthansa, for example, saying this Wednesday it would drop 20,000 short-haul flights this summer to curb fuel costs. Well, Wednesday's emergency EU response plan outlines how member states should coordinate on measures like cutting energy taxes to protect the bloc as a whole. And it calls for more investment in renewable energy to make the continent less exposed to global volatility in the future. Luke Schrago has more.
Since the US and Israel went to war in Iran at the end of February, the European Union has spent an extra 24 billion euros on fuel imports, and now it's acting to get a handle on those soaring costs.
But the true impact of this crisis is long-term. It is evolving. It is unpredictable. We can protect the most vulnerable citizens in our communities. We can protect the most exposed sectors of our economies, such as energy-intensive industries. And crucially, we can take action that will protect us from future shocks.
While avoiding price caps or corporate profit windfall taxes, for now at least, the European Commission outlined plans to make it easier for governments to cut bills for electricity-intensive industries by reducing energy taxes. It'll also set up a fuel observatory to monitor EU production, imports, exports and stocks of transport fuels, with a focus on jet fuel, with 40% of the EU's needs met through imports, half of which transit the Strait of Hormuz. And there'll be coordination over replenishing gas stocks before the winter to avoid any price surges. Reducing reliance on fossil fuels is also now more important than ever.
Today's crisis shows to what extent speeding up our energy transition is key for competitiveness, resilience and prosperity. And we are in a better situation than in the previous energy crisis. We have done a lot, but we still need to do more to develop a shield for those that could be suffering the most in the current crisis.
There's been progress for clean energy in Europe in recent years. From 60% in 2022, the bloc met 71% of its needs with renewables and nuclear power last year.
Well, in a step towards that renewable energy future, France hopes to start producing up to 34 tons of lithium hydroxide per year by the year 2030. President Emmanuel Macron inaugurated a new lithium mine in Echassières in central France on Wednesday. In February, the French state invested some 50 million euros in the project, which is called Émilie. Macron said it was a crucial step in efforts to reduce French and European reliance on imports of critical minerals.
Our goal is to produce approximately 1.5 million electric vehicle batteries per year. This means that half of what we need to produce for these batteries will be secured through this facility. If we don't undertake projects like these, our industry will be completely at the mercy of the Chinese and a few others for the next 10, 15, 20 or 30 years. That's absolutely unsustainable and would be irresponsible.
Well, lithium is a key component in batteries for electric cars, as well as other electronics and wind turbines. Australia is the world's top producer of lithium, followed by Chile and China. China, though, is responsible for over 70% of the refining process, which means that it plays a dominant role in the global supply chain. Now, Europe imports almost all of the lithium that it uses, despite having significant deposits across the continent. Extraction projects are getting underway in Portugal, Finland, along the Czech-German border, as well as in France now. The U.S. Treasury Secretary has defended his decision to extend sanctions relief on Russian oil just days after saying he would not. Last week, Scott Bessent said he would not renew a waiver that allowed the sale of Russian oil. Then on Friday, he announced a U-turn, saying countries could continue to buy Russian oil that was already on ships at sea for a further 30 days. Ukraine has criticized the move, saying it helped to finance Moscow's military operations. But speaking at a Senate hearing, Secretary Bessent said the move was temporary and would help to keep global energy prices from spiraling still further.
As a result, last week was Bank Week, World Bank, and IMF Week, and on Wednesday, it was my belief we would not do it. I was approached by more than 10 of the most vulnerable and poorest countries in terms of energy, and they ask us to extend that sanction, and it's only for 30 days.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent speaking there. And Mark, I will just point out that oil prices are on the rise again. The international benchmark Brent crude crossing over that $100 per barrel mark once again.
Kate, thank you very much indeed. It's sometimes bad news, but she delivers it so well, and that's what we appreciate from Kate. Great to see you. Kate back with more business news in round about an hour's time, because business never sleeps here at France 24. And neither does Kate. Great to see you, Kate. All the very best. Kate Moody, our business editor. We take a short